basketball, the Thunder, where they're all heading. So we got 3 segments in this podcast episode. Each one's focused on a different moment that says more than just the headline ever could. So we got poise under pressure. We got identity taking shape. We've got performances that quietly signal some real progress. Just so you'll know, our first segment's going to be all about football. John Mateer, I got to get to that. Then we're switching to basketball. That's that time of the year. So before we jump into any of this, I need to ask you to do me a favor. First of all, I want to tell you I appreciate you. And then make sure you do the like, make sure you subscribe. Wherever you listen to the podcast, make sure you're there and following us. It's the easiest way to support what we do. And it helps us keep building our brand for Sooner fans who want more than just, surface level takes. And so let's jump into this, okay? Because I teased this conversation on Sunday because I really wanted to get into this on Sunday because it was more buzzing then than what it is now. But then Kobe McKenzie kind of threw a monkey wrench in that with his commitment, or I guess announcement to go into the transfer portal. But one of those moments where college football, the NFL draft, the NIL, and real career math all intersect. That's where John Mateer is, okay? That's the discussion, that the discussion stops being emotional and it starts being a little bit uncomfortable, okay? And there's a point in every college quarterback's career where the conversation shifts, okay? It stops being about the next opponent. It stops being about the next season. It stops being about whether you can play on Sundays. And it becomes about not is the NFL possible, but is this the right moment to go? And that's why I think this is a hot button topic, because there's a lot of people in the college football world. Had a conversation just today with a guy I know in Georgia who was like, what are they going to do about quarterback next year? You can't go back to John Mateer. Well, absolutely you can go back to John Mateer, because if Oklahoma doesn't want him, guess what? The NFL does. And there's a lot of Sooner Nation that doesn't even believe that he's the NFL quality or NFL caliber quarterback. I think we're all wrong about that, if that's where we stand. And John Mateer is on the precipice of having to make a decision of what he's going to do. Is he going to enter the NFL draft? Not because he's dominated college football, not because he's flawless, and not because he's universally viewed as a future franchise quarterback. The conversation that we're having, the conversation that John Mateer is having with his people, it exists for a much more complicated reason. So the NFL draft is not just about who you are, it's also about who else is available. And right now, John Mateer finds himself in a fascinating crossroads that has less to do with about arm strength and accuracy and more to do with timing, scarcity, and draft economics. So no, we're not talking about hype with John Mateer. We're talking about reality. And let's start with the part that we as fans, we either overstate or we dismiss entirely. And that's NFL buzz. Yeah, NFL evaluators, they know who John Mateer is. Yep, he has appeared on draft boards. And even analysts like Mel Kiper Jr., they've mentioned him among the quarterbacks to watch in the 2026 draft cycle. Even the exact ranking gets exaggerated online, and that matters a little bit. I think Mel Kiper Jr. has him as the 4th highest rated quarterback in the 2026 draft. And quarterbacks don't end up accidentally in those conversations. You don't just trip and fall into draft projections. Mateer has enough athleticism. He has enough poise, and he has enough production in high profile environments for scouts to take him seriously. Don't forget, he was one of the top passers in 2024 in all of college football. So he's not anonymous. He's not a system-only quarterback. He's a legitimate evaluation. But here's where we as Sooner Nation, here's where we get tripped up a little bit. Because legitimate doesn't mean certain. Mateer's profile is best described as intriguing but unfinished. He can escape pressure. He can extend plays. He can throw accurately on the move. Those are traits that the NFL team values more than ever. but he also hesitates at times. His processing isn't always consistent. There are stretches where the offense bogs down because of anticipation, not arm talent. The anticipation hasn't caught up with him yet. And that combination of traits plus inconsistency is exactly why timing matters so much for him. Because quarterbacks like Meteor, they don't rise or fall solely on tape. They rise or fall based on the environment that they enter, which brings us to the most important variable in this entire discussion. Let's talk about the 2026 quarterback draft class. All right, here's another part that we often miss out as a fan base. NFL teams don't draft quarterbacks in a vacuum. They draft against scarcity. When a draft class lacks obvious franchise passers, the value of quarterbacks who might normally be considered second tier, it rises dramatically. Traits get emphasized, upside gets prioritized, developmental timelines get stretched. So in other words, someone always gets drafted. And if Meteor continues on a steady upward trajectory, not spectacular, just steady, he could benefit enormously from being a part of a class where teams are searching for answers rather than choosing between stars. This is how some quarterbacks become late first round draft picks. This is how early day two careers get launched. Not because the player suddenly becomes elite, but because the environment makes him necessary. That's not theory. That is history. Now, here's the uncomfortable flip side to all of this. The 2027 quarterback class is already being whispered about as deeper, stronger, and more talented than 2026. Multiple scouting outlets have early projections that include higher ceilings, cleaner mechanics, stronger arms, and more refined passers than what this current 2026 class is expected to offer. And draft projections, they have a funny habit, right? That they miss on individuals, but they're usually directionally correct. And if that holds, the calculus for Meteor changes dramatically. Because in a stronger class, being, quote, interesting, it's not enough. In a deeper class, quarterbacks without elite arm talent or flawless processing get pushed down on boards. Developmental prospects become afterthoughts. Teams stop reaching. Waiting an extra year only helps you if you clearly separate yourself. And that's the gamble. But leaving too early, that's just as dangerous. Everybody knows this. John Meteor is not a finished product. He still benefits enormously from college reps, especially in the SEC. From seeing disguised coverages, from learning how to win from the pocket instead of relying on his escapability, from mastering patience when the first read isn't there. And Oklahoma offers something that many programs don't: visibility with forgiveness. What I mean by that is this: NFL scouts, they already watch Oklahoma quarterbacks closely. Meteor doesn't need to prove that he belongs on their radar because he's already on their radar. What he needs is refinement, and refinement happens best where mistakes don't end careers. In the NFL, one bad preseason can erase a quarterback. In college, growth is allowed. And that matters more than what we may realize as fans. And then there's the factor that no one likes to say out loud: money. Late round NFL quarterbacks, they don't make more than established college starters with strong NIL backing. Undrafted free agents absolutely don't. So for Meteor, staying another year, it's not about football, it's about leverage. It's about choosing when to enter the league instead of being rushed into the league. That's not selfish, that's smart. The modern quarterback has options. Meteor doesn't need to sprint toward a league that churns through backups at an alarming rate. He can wait until the environment favors him, which brings us to the real question here. It's not, can John Meteor go to the NFL? He can. The real question is whether he can go on his own terms. Right now, the stars are quietly aligning in a way that could make 2026 a legitimate window of opportunity. Not a guarantee, a window. One that rewards competence, durability, and upward trajectory more than it does dominance. But windows, they close quickly. If Mateer stagnates, the window shuts. If he regresses, the window disappears. And if the 2027 class lives up to its billing, the competition is going to stiffen overnight. So this isn't about chasing hype. It's about understanding draft economics. Sooner fans, we don't get to decide Mateer's future. He decides that. But we should also understand this much. His development matters more than his numbers. His command matters more than his highlights. His timing matters more than his raw talent. Quarterbacks with his profile don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they miss their moment. And if John Mateer takes another step forward, not a leap, just a step, the NFL door won't just open, it'll wait. And in today's college football landscape, that's the most powerful position that a quarterback can be in.